Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&As. Let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey Jason, I train 4 times a week, upper, lower, 2 heavy days, 2 volume days, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sunday is considered as day 1. Day 1 heavy squats and deads, day 2 heavy bench, chins, and overhead press. Day 3 volume squats plus some accessories. Day 4 volume bench and rows and plus some accessories. The problem is that during heavy bench day, my performance seems to suffer, which is probably due to doing it after heavy squats deads. Do you think it would be better to swap day 2 with day 4, meaning volume bench would be on day 2, which is the day after a heavy squat deadlift and heavy... Alright, I'm not going to read that whole thing. What you're doing is called concurrent periodization. And it's oftentimes run 4 days a week. Most people get good results doing it that way if they're not going to run straight up full body. So you're doing almost an upper-lower concurrent periodization, right? You do not need to do 2 heavy or 2 volume days back-to-back. You need to flip-flop those. If you're going to do something like this, not as full body, you need to rotate through them. So it needs to be, if you're going to have day 1 followed by day 2, then a day off, then day 3, and then day 4 back-to-back again, you probably want day 1 to be a heavy day, day 2 to be a volume day, day 3 to be a volume day, day 4 to be a heavy day. Now, you're going to look at that and say, but my days repeat. It still ends up being, if you were to just cut it midweek, it would still be heavy, heavy, light, light, right? But not really, because you're getting at least 24 hours between them before going to the next body part. Doing something like heavy lower and then heavy upper the very next day, you might as well just do full body at that point and have a heavy day, then a day off and a light day. So it's really defeating the whole purpose of concurrent periodization. Yes, you're going to have recovery problems. Yes, it's going to interfere. You really might as well just do full body and just get done with 3 days every week if you're going to do it like that and end up with more frequency per lift. The whole point of splitting things into an upper lower is because you want to be able to do more workload with individual lifts like that, right? Without the fatigue carrying over from, say, your squats and deadlifts carrying over to your bench. Well, that's not going to happen if your nervous system is too fatigued from the heavy days, and the same thing with some of the support muscles. If they're fatigued from the more volume days, it will interfere with your ability to do it. It also completely defeats the purpose of doing concurrent periodization. So split it up the way that I said. So what you want is a heavy day, then your volume day, then a day off, then a volume day for the same stuff again, followed by a heavy day, then your 1 or 2 days off. And that will work a lot better for you. All right, next question. Jason, please help with my bench press. I've never been able to get over 115 kilograms. I've had a 200 squat, 230 deadlift, so I know the basics. I'm doing madcows. On the last set, I don't get all 5 reps, or I get them and the next week can't do the higher weight. For F's sake. All right, brother. Couple things, man. I mean, obviously you're doing pretty good. I mean, if you're 115 kilogram bench, 200 squat, 230 deadlift, that's not bad. Especially if you're a natty, if you're a lifetime natty, I'm gonna say that's real strong. And in fact, that's why your squat and deadlift are a bit heavier, because bench press responds a little better to drugs. But actually your ratios and everything look good. You're fine. You're doing just fine there. Bench press, though, is more correlated to body weight than these other two. So, you might have to do a little bit of a bulk. Now, you're an advanced lifter at this point, right? You're not a noob lifter. You're an advanced lifter. So when it comes to things like bulking, you're going to need to be conservative if you don't want to get fat, but you're going to need to gain a little bit of body weight. You have to gain a few kilos, right? You're going to have to do that. And you're going to have to be patient. You are now an advanced lifter. It's going to take a lot of time. You might have to run something like several cycles of madcows to get another 2, 3, 5 kilos, right? That's actually stuff you start looking at this point in the game for you. That stuff you're looking at is like 1 year goals, not something you do in 8 weeks, especially if you're not going bulk hard. So you're going to have to just be patient with it. You're going to have to be patient. Madcows is perfectly acceptable. You might need to add some more volume work, some accessory work for bench, whether that's some closed grip, pause bench, or some floor press, weighted dips. You're going to need to do something also to maybe help just bring up your triceps and chest a little bit. Wouldn't be a bad idea. All right, next question. I've had pain in the lower right side of my back for about 3 months now that has completely taken me out of lifting. I'm getting an MRI done Monday. The doctor thinks I have a herniated or bulging disc. If I do, what are some things I can do to help get it back into lifting? Squats, deadlifts, and rows are my favorite lifts, and I would be devastated to not be able to do them anymore. You've already screwed up, man. I don't know what to tell you here, but if you listen to some medical doctors who lift, who talk about this, I mean, I've seen a number of them do it, including like even the barbell medicine guys. The data we have on back injuries is that when you experience back pain, if it's not so debilitating that it cripples you, nursing it actually isn't helpful. That can actually make it worse. So if you just completely took yourself out of lifting, that may exacerbate the problem. It might already be bad. And what some of these guys have said, that unless it's a serious injury, and in many cases, and again, I'm not a doctor, I would say talk to a doctor. I would almost say, why don't you go talk to like Jordan Feigenbaum or one of those guys? See what they have to say for advising you instead of necessarily me, because I'm not an MD. But I would talk to one of those guys. But they may tell you something like, well, you can still train with all that stuff. You can do it. In fact, and some of them might even tell you the MRI can actually create more of a placebo pain for you when you try to lift in the future. But yeah, instead of have taken 3 months off, man, I would have gone to some of these doctors who also are serious lifters themselves and maybe got some advice before I took 3 months off from the gym, because that actually might have made it worse, at least from what I've heard some of these guys say. So, again, I don't want to give a lot of advice for people with back injuries, though. I try to avoid that for the most part. But, so again, I'm kind of going to direct you in that other direction to maybe see what those guys have to say, because this is their wheelhouse. All right, next question. Hey, coach, if I can squat with flats with a safety squat bar instead of lifting shoes and a standard bar, would that lead to more hypertrophy, particularly in the calves? In theory, it should, as the ankle gets larger range of motion. What are your thoughts? Wondering what bar to buy for my new home gym. Thanks, Jason. No, I mean, the safety squat bar has its place as an accessory movement and some novel training stimulus, but I wouldn't say it's going to lead to more hypertrophy at all. No, absolutely not. And squats wouldn't even be my go-to for calves, even if you're genetically gifted in the calf. I think deadlifts and deficit deadlifts and all that actually give you better squat development. Calf development. But no, man, I'm going to say get your normal bar. I mean, if you want a safety squat bar to rotate in every now and then, there's nothing wrong with that. But no, it's not a replacement for your back squat. It's absolutely not a replacement for your back squat. The back squat is going to give you better overall results, and that needs to be your go-to base builder. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the safety squat, but if you're buying the bar as a replacement for back squats and you can physically do back squats, I wouldn't do that. It's a great accessory, but I wouldn't use it as my primary. Just my opinion on it. And I've owned a safety squat bar before. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. What about muscle activation and supposedly being able to feel the muscle work better through various grips and squeezing different fingers on the bar and things like gripping the floor with your feet when you squat, etc.? Can you please put on your +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on sculpting your crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. All right. Different things do give different muscle activation, but this idea that you can feel it more is automatically more muscle activation, that's bodybuilder nonsense. It's not based on reality. All right, that's not based on reality. There are things that might seem to cause more pain, or you feel certain things that have to do with connective tissue more than the actual muscles. In fact, DOMS, for example, isn't felt inside the actual muscle fibers. Like if you have delayed onset muscle soreness, it's not your actual muscle fibers themselves that sore, it's connective tissue. So just so that you understand that. Furthermore, particularly when we start dealing with compound movements, where you feel it isn't always indicative of what's being fully worked. Because if it was, then in my case, the pin lay row would be the most amazing bicep exercise ever. Do you know that I get a better bicep pump and burn from doing a pronated grip pin lay row than I do sometimes even doing a concentration curl? In theory, that shouldn't happen, should it? Because the back is really the primary mover. Biceps are being worked a lot, but the back is doing a lot of the work. I don't feel it in my back at all. I don't feel pull-ups, rows, chin-ups, even with a dead hang, in my back. So you see the problem with where you feel it matters, and if you adjust this grip, you feel it's not necessarily indicative of what's really going on. That's what your brain is perceiving when it's getting input from half a dozen different muscles at once. You're always going to feel something somewhere more than somewhere else, but that doesn't mean that it's being worked more always. That's just what your brain is perceiving, and how you feel can be a lie. So just keep that in mind. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.